All right, Ball State fans, we are live here from the Ball State Alumni Center with University President Jeffrey Mearns. We just welcomed in head football coach Mike Uremovich. President Mearns, thank you for joining us on this special edition of This Week in Ball State Sports. This is one fantastic day.
It is, and it's good, always good to be with you, Mick, and particularly on a special and exciting and promising day like today.
It is. We heard a lot of great messages, starting off with your message to all of the people in attendance today about Coach U and Jeff Mitchell giving his remarks as well. Want to start with just the process of what this whole situation took place with President Mearns. How did you see Coach U stand out from anybody else that could take this job?
Yeah, so as Jeff Mitchell explained during the program just a few minutes ago, we had a search firm that assisted us, and they, they helped Jeff identify more than 45 qualified candidates. And then Jeff worked very closely with the search firm to narrow that list down to kind of 9 semifinalists. He then took it and spoke with some of those folks. I think they did telephone calls and Zoom interviews. And as he said, when he got down to maybe 3, 4, or 5, he was meeting with them personally. All during that process, I was not directly involved, but he was sharing with me the resumes and the backgrounds and his impressions, and making sure that I understood where he was heading. And then when he had identified it down to really kind of 3 finalists and really focusing, at least initially for a variety of reasons, on Coach U, that's when on Tuesday I went down with Jeff and met with Mike and met with his wife Katie and had an opportunity to spend about 90 minutes with them.
President Mearns, this is your first process, right, of a new head football coach here at Ball State.
That is. I've hired some other coaches, and
Yeah.
I was involved with Beth Getz when we hired Coach Lewis for men's basketball. But yes, this is the first football coach that I've been involved in that process.
I think one thing that you can really feel in this circumstance, President Mearns, is the excitement from the community as well. There's somebody that comes in from Butler that built up the Butler Bulldogs football program. How do you see that community excitement already started to take place?
Well, there are just so many ways in which Coach U is aligned with us. You heard that, he understands his role as a coach and an educator and a mentor. He understands the need to look at a program with a lot of potential, but maybe a lot of untapped potential, and how to tap into that potential with the players that he's able to recruit, and to demonstrate to them that with discipline and determination and consistency of championship effort, as he referred to it, it isn't just necessarily the most talented, the most naturally talented players who win. It's the best team and the best collective effort and the best discipline. And so I think he will bring that edge to us in the program. And there are going to be a lot of young men who are going to want to be a part of that, who maybe have been overlooked by a Power 5 program, who maybe feel like they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, something to prove. And then you put that collectively together with 80 or 90 young men, all who have a little chip on their shoulder, boy, a lot of good things can happen. And he also shared our expectations about excellence in the classroom, character and integrity on campus and in the community. So the fit was there. And as you heard a moment ago, an awful lot of passion.
Yes, a lot of passion, especially for recruiting players in the 5-hour radius of where Muncie is at.
That will be the nucleus of the team.
I think that is important, that when you look at how you're recruiting, right, and that it sounds like that stuck out quite a bit to you and Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell of, hey, we want somebody that can focus it on that area and really collectively bring the community together.
And so he'll have a network of high school coaches who will know the kind of young men that he wants to recruit, and he'll be able to sell. Those coaches will be able to sell their good players on Ball State, and in turn he will be able to trust those high school coaches who say, this is the right kind of a young man for you.
Ball State University President Jeffrey Mearns joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports, special edition from the Alumni Center. Just got done with the introductory news conference with Coach U here for Ball State football. President Mearns, when you look at what the future of this football program is and the hiring of Coach U, how do you know that this program is in good hands?
Well, as I said, I had a chance to meet with him, sit across of a kitchen table, and learned a little bit about why he became a coach, how he grew up, the values that he had as a young person. So probably in the same way that he was evaluating high school juniors and seniors, Jeff Mitchell and I were doing the same thing. And boy, it just resonated with me that this was somebody who wants to win. You heard him say he likes to take players in a program that maybe is really hungry, that doesn't take a winning season or a trip to a bowl game as a given, that sense of entitlement. Mick, you've often heard me say overall about our student body, students don't come to Ball State with a sense of entitlement. They come with a sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
And it's those kind of young men that he wants in the program, with a purpose to say, we will show you that Ball State can compete. And they are going to compete. And I'm pretty confident that over the next few years, we will be one of those programs that's consistently well above 500 and consistently in the MAC championship game and consistently going to a bowl game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What I loved is he said, I want people in this program, coaches, players, staff, that want to be here. They want to be here.
Who don't see this as the next step in their journey or the next rung on the ladder. They want to be here and win. That's why I'm here. I'm delighted to be at Ball State. I want to stay here till whenever they kick me out. And
which hopefully is never.
We hope that's not anytime soon. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. And that's what we want. And he's going to bring assistant coaches with that same commitment, and players. And as you know, Mick, you've been around this institution for a while. You know our fans are very loyal fans, many of whom were in that room today.
Yes.
They've stuck with us in all of our sports that go up and down. They've stuck with us throughout that journey. They deserve an opportunity to see a winning team again and to go to a bowl game.
One thing that stuck out was the competitive nature that Coach U has, and you talked about it when you opened things up, but that you're competitive as well, and the situation with you playing ping pong. And
we play the game.
Absolutely, and I love that conversation during the news conference because it gave a little light into when you started talking about that, and then he got on stage and started talking about that. There was a light that flickered in his eyes about, hey, I'm competitive about this, but I'm going to do this the right way. Right. I'm not going to do this in a way that isn't right.
And we don't have to compromise. That is, we don't have to compromise on student athletes who have excellent academic performance. You've seen it in all of our programs, including football. We don't have to compromise on character. They are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
We can find them in all of the outstanding young women and young men who come to Ball State, which, as you've heard me say so many times, makes me so proud to be the president here and to be such a loyal and avid supporter of our Ball State Cardinals in every sport, in every competition.
President Mearns joining us here outside the Alumni Center after Coach U introduced as the next Ball State football head coach to fans, media members, and the university. President Mearns, Monday night, Caitlin Clark, David Letterman. I had to get that in here during this conversation. Were you the one that rolled the ball out midway through?
No, I was down in the audience at that point. But boy, I assume you were there that evening?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great evening, and certainly grateful to Caitlin Clark that she would come to our campus. As you could see during the conversation, she was pretty excited to be here. And David Letterman, is there not a more loyal, passionate Ball State fan? I mean, when we made this opportunity available to him, he agreed within 24 hours. He loves being on our campus. He loves being particularly around our students. You could tell in the beginning of the program when he came out before the interview started,
absolutely,
how happy he was here, happy he was to be back on campus. And I wasn't there, but after the program was over and all the crew were packing up stuff, and he stayed backstage for probably an hour after the program was over. And then when he went back to his car through the back loading dock, there were a couple of students who were waiting for him, had been waiting out in the cold for that long. And he was so excited when they said, David Letterman, will you talk to us? Will you take photos? And he was absolutely. And so we are so fortunate to have somebody of his stature and national and international prominence and fame who loves being in Indiana, loves being in Muncie, and loves being on the Ball State campus. And I loved what he said is, when he went here, it was like a medium security prison, and now it's like Versailles. So he's proud to be a Ball State Cardinal forever.
We appreciate him taking so much time here on campus to do everything, especially on Monday.
Yeah, and I suspect that maybe the next opportunity will give him an opportunity to be in an interview with you, and maybe that will bring him back.
Look, I don't know if I'll be the one to bring him back, President Burns. We'll get you in a sit down. I think you two have a discussion. The toughest fighting little bird in the world is the Ball State Cardinal. That's right. That's a great way to end this segment. President Burns, thank you for joining us, talking Coach U and some Letterman, Caitlin Clark.
Always good to be with you, Mick. And if I don't speak to you before then, hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful holiday season.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You as well, President Burns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's Ball State University President Jeffrey Mearns joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports, special live edition here from the Ball State Alumni Center, talking about Coach U and the Ball State football program. Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell comes up next. Welcome back inside This Week in Ball State Sports, and we're here with Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell talking about Coach U joining Ball State as the head football coach. Jeff, really appreciate your time, and today has been a very rewarding day for you and so many a part of this program.
Well, it's been a very rewarding day for all of us, and I'm so excited to have introduced Coach Uremovich to the Ball State campus and to the Muncie community. It was a pleasure to have not only Coach but his family join us, and bless him, I left him with the Wolves talking to
Yes,
the
you did.
media just now, and I'm just very pleased that he is here. He is the definition of what we were looking for in our next head coach, and that process has been really exciting, and it culminates with a day like today. And it's a beautiful day outside, and although cold, and it's a lovely day inside, and we've just had a tremendous experience today as we've welcomed him into the Ball State Cardinal community.
I love how every day that's under 30 degrees, Jeff, you're like, it's a little
Yeah,
chilly.
it's the truth.
A little chilly. Alumni Center is a great place to be today. There was a lot of really good stuff that you, President Mearns, and Coach U talked about during that news conference. And one thing that kind of really stuck out to me was his want and desire to bring in players and staff, coaches that want to be at Ball State to help grow this place to make it excellent. President Mearns talked about that. I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were, too, on that specific comment.
Well, it should come as no surprise, Mick, because that's what I was looking for in our next coach, and he urgently wanted this job from the first time that I met him to today, and I think that resonated very clearly. It is important that you construct a team, construct a staff, construct a athletics department, construct a university of leaders and winners that want to be at Ball State. This place is an attractive place to be. It is a community in which we can really make a difference in how we promote and elevate the Muncie area, East Central Indiana, certainly Ball State. And I'm excited that a coach of his caliber, with his experience, with his demeanor, and with his level of expertise, has agreed to accept our offer to serve in this capacity, because it's a big position on campus.
What stood out most about Coach U the first time you talked to him?
I think it was the fact that he had a plan already for how he would restore Ball State as a top-tier Mid-American Conference program. I mentioned to members of the media just in the last few minutes that at every turn, each interview, including Zoom interviews, phone calls, and in-person meetings, he outlined, demonstrated his plan for what we could be. And the most impressive thing was when I sat in his home, he outlined essentially a 120-day plan, so 4 months worth of calendars, where he said, this is what we're going to do on each day.
That's
and
impressive.
It was from recruiting to staff construction to roster construction to meeting with the team to meeting with individual players on the team to official visit weekends to how he's going to install spring practice to when spring practice days are going to be. And he just didn't haphazardly put this on a calendar. He was detailed with it and had given it considerable thought. And what was funny is that he had day one on Monday, and I told him, this was on Saturday. I told him, I said, now I'm not coming back to visit you until Tuesday.
Right.
And we laughed about that. But so that calendar is shifted by a couple of days. But so far, 2 days in, he's accomplished everything he wanted to on those first 2 days of his plan to restore Cardinal football to the top of the league.
Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell joining us here at the initial introduction of Coach U of Ball State football. Jeff, when you listened to Coach U speak today, from his comments, what stood out most?
How genuine he is and authentic he is as a leader, as a football coach. Everything that we heard him say today had been articulated to me in the numerous conversations and meetings that we had had to date. It was also affirmed in the number of people that commented on just how good of a coach he is and how good of a person that he is. So when we talk about a complete package, when we talk about attracting the caliber of person and the caliber of leader and the caliber of talent in a respective position, I think what you saw today and what has not been any different in our search process is what you've seen from Coach Uremovich. I'm just very excited and pleased that he's agreed to accept our offer to be the next head football coach at Ball State.
And one thing I really like that he's talked about too is making sure that he is taking care of business in the 5-hour radius of Muncie. We talked about that a little bit, people who want to be at Ball State, but then also you're talking about people that within this 5-hour radius, and they'll recruit, as he said, outside of that 5-hour radius, but he's making a point to say, hey, we want to be the best in the Midwest. How do you see that being a part of what your vision was too?
Well, it's really important. And, when I talk about that second window that I referenced in the press conference, we got the first window being competence, being a really good football coach. The second window is connectedness, and recruiting is a part of that. And there's other layers to it. But the Midwest region is the area from which we draw a lot of talented students, whether it's football players or students generally on campus. And so we have to be there. We have to take advantage of that talent. But we also have to look outside of it as well. And one of the things that was exciting to me was he has experience in those spaces. So on the East Coast, in the South, and there's a lot of talent in those regions as well. So that level of connectedness from a recruiting standpoint, from the fact that he's going to pull staffs from all over those different regions as well, or assistant coaches, and then that third window, of course, is competitiveness. And I think you saw that competitive drive and fire, and certainly the experience of what he's been able to accomplish throughout the course of his career in various capacities. And it's that breadth of experience that ultimately was the separator for him, and why I was so excited to offer him the opportunity.
You mentioned that the breadth of experience. I think that's one thing that can't get lost within this whole shuffle, because you have somebody that's coached in the MAC, coached at places like Temple, built programs like Butler and St. Francis, or St. Thomas. You have so many of these types of opportunities that he went to in different capacities and can lead football teams. So when you looked at the resume, when you looked at the diversity of ways that he contributed into a team, what stood out the most within that breadth of experience?
Well, he's a winner, and he was not afraid to undertake challenges. He bet on himself when he was 28 years old.
Yeah.
To be a head football coach. Being a head football coach, being a head coach generally in this day and age is really, really difficult. Doing it when you're 28 years old is a level of confidence that is uncommon, right? And he stayed for 7 years, Mick, and he flipped that program to where they had a 4-year run at the end of his tenure there that had not been seen in some 20-plus years at St. Francis, and of course did the same thing at Butler when he got the job. He made the comment when we were sitting with him and his wife Katie on Tuesday in their home, and President Mearns was with me for that meeting. He said, "I am happiest when I'm serving as a head coach." And so I was looking for an opportunity where I could be happy. Well, you've got a beaming wife in Katie who smiles broadly when her husband says that, and then you've got a president and an athletic director that notice that, right? And it's really impactful and powerful when he can blend his personal values with his professional values and see it play out in real time, and then match it up against his experience and the places that they've been and the success that he's had. And then you get to say, hey, we want you to be our coach.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
By the way, yeah. When's the next time you can get some sleep? What's the last 21 days look like?
It's been fun, but it has been tiring, and but it's been it's a mixture of emotions, right? There's just it's not easy. You don't get into this business to make leadership changes. You don't You just don't. But what you do get in the business for is the opportunity to build. And I think that is what we've been doing over the last 18 days or so, is having an attitude of construction. And I'm so grateful for our staff, grateful for our search consultant and Drew Turner and Collegiate Sports Associates, and especially grateful for the level and the depth of dialogue that I've had with people who are interested in this job, and particularly the conversations and the time spent with Coach Mike Uremovich. I see myself working well with him, and certainly that's the way you want to feel. And I think he is going to enjoy working with me, working with our staff, and he's been very impressed by the depth that we have approached him with how we run the program, with the support that we provide football. He commented on the facilities and the people that are already here. And so now we get to stack on it, right, and continue to build. And that's the most exciting thing for me. So the sleep factor was probably going to become effective tonight.
That's a good time for it.
Yes.
You got the press conference in the books. You've got Coach settled in for a couple of days. Family's introduced to everybody.
That's right.
That's a good time for it. Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports, talking about Coach Uremovich joining Ball State football's program. Jeff, the ability for Coach to dive right into. You mentioned that you wanted somebody that wanted this job right now, not somebody who would, I want the job, but I've got to do this or that. How did that play out when you sat down and talked to him and he said, I'll do this today. I'll do this right now?
Well, great question, because it was one of the unique elements of this search that I hadn't necessarily anticipated. So we're in this really interesting period within intercollegiate athletics, specific to football, where you've got a season ending and the urgency to build a roster to get going for next year starts immediately.
Yeah.
There's not a day off. And so that factored in the decision to make our leadership change when we did, with a couple of weeks left, because I really thought that the runway we needed to exercise a thoughtful, comprehensive search was only going to be possible if we did it right away, as opposed to waiting until the end of the season, because you had signing day, that the initial day of this early signing period was on Wednesday, and then the transfer portal opens up on Monday. You've got a junior college signing period that's coming up in another couple of weeks. Then the regular signing period begins in February. When you look at those on a calendar, you realize that there's just not a lot of time.
Right.
And so we needed somebody, and again, I wanted somebody in place by signing day. And we got it done, because I needed somebody to hit the ground running, because I made a comment to our search partner and a couple other friends within the industry, like, every day we don't have a head coach past the first day of National Signing Day is a day that we're going to be behind, and it has a compounding effect. If we can start before signing day or on signing day, we're going to be that much progressively ahead. So we've done that, and the level of detail and the work ethic that Coach U has already demonstrated in the now third day that he's been on the job, I feel very confident that we're going to be in a great place come the spring, so that we can put our systems in place, at least initially. We'll do it again in the summer. We'll do it again in the fall camp. We'll get ready for the season. I mean, it is a process, but I feel a lot better today knowing that we've done it in a way that is beneficial to the future success of our program. We had other candidates that were eminently qualified, but there was a lack of that urgency. They were playing our participants as coaches on other teams that had opportunities to continue to extend their season, and they were certainly interested, but couldn't commit to starting right away. And in the college game right now, particularly when we are trying to reestablish ourselves, it was critical that we had somebody start right away. And again, at every turn, he was committed to starting before he even got the job offer. So it worked out great.
I'll start before you start paying me.
That's right.
Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports, a special live episode talking the hiring of Ball State football new head coach Mike Uremovich. Jeff, before we let you go here on the podcast, is there anything you want Ball State fans to know about either this process, about Coach U, about what this program looks like?
Well, I'm grateful for the support of the Board of Trustees, grateful for the support of President Mearns, several members of President Mearns' cabinet, which I have the privilege to sit on, just so helpful in this process. And it is worth noting that when I talked about how we're all in this together, that there's a lot of people on this campus pulling for and rooting for the success of our football program. And I think Coach Uremovich feels that. I think his family feels that. I think the staff that he brings in is going to feel that. And I think our players are going to feel it as well. And so what I would encourage our fans to do is continue to do your research on Coach Uremovich. Go visit the athletics department website. Go ahead and put your deposits down for season tickets next year, because that's very helpful. When we talk about we're all in this together, it's really important that we have our fans and our alumni and our friends help us do this, because it's a lot more fun when we do it together as opposed to doing it when we're not aligned. And we're very much aligned here at Ball State, and it's an honor to be in this situation today where I had the privilege to announce the 19th head coach of our football program in Mike Uremovich.
Well, Coach Uremovich joining us here in a couple of moments here on This Week in Ball State Sports. Jeff, really appreciate your time, as always, here on This Week in Ball State Sports, and get some sleep, catch up a little bit.
Mick, thank you so much. Go Cards.
All right, Ball State fans, welcome back inside This Week in Ball State Sports, special edition of the podcast, live version here from the Alumni Center, and we're pleased to be joined by new football head coach Mike Uremovich. Coach, really appreciate your time. Congratulations.
Thanks. Exciting day, to have the press conference, and I can check that off the list now and go back to recruiting and everything else. But it was good. It was great to meet all those people in there today for the first time, and excited to have my family here.
Coach, you say recruiting right now. During the news conference, you started talking about recruiting, and your eyes kind of just flipped into a different gear. It seems like you're really excited to kind of dive into that situation and get going there.
I am. We got a chance to meet with the players here, which is important, and we got that out of the way and met with them. I got a chance to talk to them, and they're going to go home for Christmas break. So it allows us to focus on building the roster and maybe on building a staff.
What have these first couple of days been like in the Cardinal and White for you?
They've been great. It's exciting. Everybody comes up to you and says, are you overwhelmed? Are you drinking from a fire hose? But I've done this before as a head coach, and it wasn't at this level, but it's still the same. You got to get good people in the building as coaches. You got to get good people in the building as players. You got to go around the university and meet people. So it's on a little bigger scale, but it's the same checklist of things you got to get done.
What have you noticed most about the people at Ball State and here in Muncie?
Just the excitement. The excitement of the, obviously excited because of the change in the program, and anytime you bring in a new coach, there's going to be some excitement. But going to the women's basketball game the other day with all the kids there, and that was a great environment, and getting on campus and getting to see the buildings and the dorms and all those things, it got me excited to get recruits on campus to see everything that we have to offer here.
Nothing says more then welcome to Ball State, then 4,000 screaming kids at a basketball game, right?
And I actually went to the same game at Butler for their women's team about a month ago, so I don't know how I got roped into two of them. But, man, you need aspirin or Tylenol or something in there, man.
You will for your shoulder, too. You were launching those T-shirts out there pretty well. Coach Yu joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports after his introductory news conference at the Alumni Center. Coach, when you look at the next couple of days, you mentioned that you had talked to a lot of the players already up to this point. How do those conversations continue to roll these next few days?
Well, you have to do them. Unfortunately, normally you recruit a guy for 2 years and you really get to know him. And I'm stuck in the office getting 10 to 15 minutes with each guy on the team. And that is what it is, and that's the world we live in now. So I got a chance to talk to a bunch of them, and a bunch of them are going to come back and talk to me again over the next couple of days, and some of them probably come back 3 or 4 times. And I want that. I want to be able to spend as much time with those guys and get to know them. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going home for Christmas, so we kind of gave them some goals to go home with. They told us what they wanted to get accomplished when they get here, and then we'll all come back in that team meeting on January 5th. Seems like a long way away, but it's not. Yeah. And we're going to get to work. And I kind of laid out the expectations of what they can expect from me and what I'm going to do for them. And I wanted to know what they wanted. You know, how can I help you get where you want to go? What are your goals for this year? What do you want to accomplish this spring? And getting some of those feedbacks and let you know a little bit about the kid and what he's trying to get done.
10 to 15-minute conversations. You have to find out all about that information. Are there a lot of questions, or is it, hey, player, I want to get to know you real fast?
So when we had our team meeting prior to that, I told them, okay, here's what I want you to spend some time, and I don't want this to be like you're not prepared. I want to know, what is your personal goal for the spring? What is your academic goal for the spring? What is your individual football goal, and what's your goal for this program? So most of them came in with a notebook, or a lot of them had it on their phones. You know what I mean? Because I'm old, I use a notepad. But they came in and they did a great job. They had put thought into it. And some of them was, my personal life is I just want to call home more. Some of it is I want to have a better relationship with God. Some of it is I want to get along with my roommates better. And then the academics, there's a lot of 4.0s on this team. I want to keep a 4.0, And then you get into the football part of it, and that's important too, obviously. So those goals and what they feel is important enough to talk with me about lets me know that that's important to them. So I write all that stuff down, and I can look at it over the break and kind of think about our conversations. And then when they come back in January, I'm going to remind them, hey, this is what we talked about. Great job. You got an A on that test. Great job. Or, hey, you said you wanted a 4.0 and you just got a C on this test. Like, we got to talk about it. You know what I mean? So it gives you a starting point.
One thing that really stood out to me, and you kind of just mentioned it right there during your news conference, accountability, but also making sure players and staff know when they did something well.
Yep.
And it's just not always negative, this, that, or what we have to fix. It's also, this is what we did really well.
Yep.
How do you build on that?
Yeah, you have to reinforce positive behavior. So many times coaches you play 85-play game and they point out the 3 mistakes the kid made. Well, that's great. Okay, let's point out the 15 plays that he did his job exactly like you asked him to do it, so he knows that that's how I need to do it next time. So, we spend a lot of time reinforcing what they do well. Yeah, we got to coach them, and yeah, we got to fix what they mess up, and we're going to tell them. But you got to have a balance of that. They got to know when they do it right, and they got to know you appreciate when they do it right, and more importantly, when they do it right, how they're helping us win.
Coach Yu joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports, introducing him as the head football coach of the Alumni Center, 19th head coach in Ball State football history. Coach, the big thing that I feel like with these introductory press conferences is people getting to know who you are. How were you able to get to know some of the people that were in that room today?
Well, we shook a bunch of hands at the beginning, and I hope there's not a test on all the names, okay?
There is, actually, in 3 or 4 minutes mid-pod.
Well, then I'm going to change my goal on my sheet to get half of them. But great people. Obviously, a lot of them care deeply about Ball State, and there's donors and alumni and coaches and people, university personnel in there. And I will get back around to get to know them individually as we go through here. But just meeting them and feeling the excitement they have, and the fact that they came here on an afternoon to be at a press conference means they care about what's happening here. So that gets me excited.
Absolutely. Coach, when you look at your journey, you mentioned some of that. You've been a head coach, you've been an assistant coach, you've been an offensive line coach, you've gone through the process of different types of roles. I found your story very intriguing when you were talking about the specific roles that you had at each place, as a GA, and then at age 28 doing this, and now being a head coach at where you're at with Ball State. Throughout all of those journeys, what has stuck out most about how to be a head football coach?
I think the most important thing about being a head football coach, the one thing that's the most important is you got to have a great staff. We're not winning those games at Butler without the coaches that I had there. We're not winning those games at St. Francis without the coaches that I had there. And we won't be successful here if I don't put together a good staff. Because as the head coach, you have so much going on. It's up to those guys to relay the message and what you're trying to get across to those players on a daily basis. I try to talk to every kid in our program at least once a week, whether it's a stretch line or how you doing or seeing them at a meal or whatever. I deliberately try to make contact with all of them, but those guys are spending hours with them in a room.
Yeah.
Those guys are spending hours with them on the meeting, on the practice field, on the bus trips, on the plane. So those coaches that you hire are extremely important, and obviously you got to have good players to win. But if you don't have if you have good players and you don't have good coaches, you still don't have a chance.
Just from your experience, biggest changes from FCS to FBS outside of having different scholarship numbers and things like that. How do you think that'll play into your coaching?
Well, it'll be different here because we can just access different players. You know what I mean? There's we got a lot of Ivy League transfers at Butler, but now there's a different tier of Ivy League players graduate transfers that we can attack because you do have the scholarships and you do have the MAC conference and you do have the FBS stuff. So it's a lot different.
Head coach Mike Uremovich joining us here from the Ball State Alumni Center during his introductory media day, and then he'll be on the trail making everything happen for Ball State football coming up. Yep. Coach, I kind of do want to go back again to some of those younger days. You mentioned the lessons that you learned and some of the coaches that you've learned from, and you know, grinding away, making the money that you made to be able to sit down where you're at right now. When you look at that journey, how have you learned about yourself to put yourself in this position?
Yeah, both my parents are really hardworking people. They sacrificed a lot. They worked very hard to provide for our family, and I mean, I obviously started with that from them. But it's not really work when you love it. You know what I mean? It's really not. I mean, I love coaching football. I love being around the guys. I love being around the coaches. I love the energy it brings to a campus. Like I already signed my contract, so I can say it, but I would do it for free.
Glad you already signed.
I know, me too. My wife is too. I would. I love coaching football, man. I love it. I love being around the kids and everything and I love the fact that 15 years later you get a call from a guy that says, "Hey, I just had twin boys." You know what I mean? Like that is why I coach football.
I loved that you just said, and then also in your press conference you had mentioned that you want certain types of people in your program as student athletes and as coaches. You want to make sure they are the right fit for Ball State. When you're going through that process, what needs to be on that checklist?
Well, they got to first of all be good enough players. You know what I mean? Because I was a great kid and I was a terrible player, so we wouldn't be recruiting me right now, okay? So they got to be good enough players, all right? Now once, okay, they're above the line as a player, what type of student are they? Okay, well, obviously, yeah, they can make it here, all right? Then you try to find out as much as you can about them personally. You go to their school, you talk to their coach, you talk to their counselor, you spend time with them and see where their mind's at and see if they are going to fit here because I know what we're going to demand of them. I know what the school is going to demand of them academically. I know what our expectations are of how we're going to handle ourselves in the community. So they got to be able to fit in all those, and they got to be able to do it. And it's up to us to decide that. But if we know that they won't, we can't bring them in here because they won't fit. And then you'll have to be recruiting for that spot in another year anyway. So we got to do our work on the front end to get the right guys in the building.
Well, Coach, right before we let you go, is there anything you want to say to Ball State fans after you've been able to sit down in Muncie and Ball State the last couple of days?
I'm excited to be here, and I'm tired of doing this press stuff. I want to go to work for you guys. So if you don't hear from me in a while, that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, Coach. You appreciate you. Congratulations. Welcome to Ball State. Welcome to Muncie. Thanks you so much.
Excited to be here.
That's Coach Mike Uremovich joining us here on This Week in Ball State Sports. He is on the way out to continue his press obligations before he goes to coach Ball State football team. And that's just, I love what he just said, that he wants to attack the ground and get moving pretty fast. And we've been able to see that so far just from him jumping into this full force. Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell had mentioned it as well, and then Coach, you talking about it as well. Hey, just let me go, Coach. I'm excited to see what he does with this Ball State football roster. He had kind of mentioned it, but December 10th on Monday is that open portal date, so be sure to follow along on social media to see what transpires throughout the course of time with the Ball State football program. But this was a very, very fun edition of This Week in Ball State Sports, live from the Ball State Alumni Center. Thank you to President Mearns for joining us, Director of Athletics joining us, and of course, Coach Yu joining us as well here from the Alumni Center. This has been This Week in Ball State Sports. Cardinal fans, stay tuned. We'll have much more coming up with Coach Yu and company throughout the course of the winter and the spring.